Beautiful. We're now recording. Welcome to my webinar, EFT and Emotional Eating. So lovely to have you here, whether you're live or watching on the replay. It's lovely to have you here. I'm very excited about the information I'll be presenting tonight. I'll talk to you a little bit about me if you're not familiar with my work. I'm Kerslake and currently living in Darwin in the Northern Territory, soon to be Gold Coast. We're moving to the Gold Coast in November, which is very exciting. I'm a registered nurse, diabetes educator, and I've been trained in EFT or emotional freedom technique. And we often call that tapping. So tapping and EFT are often interchangeable. And at the moment in Darwin, it's 28 degrees. So we're entering the build-up, which is the silly season really for us. So it's warm. It's going to be 36 tomorrow and minimum of about 22. So it's going to be really warm. I'm just going to open up the chat before we do too much more as well, so that I can see any comments as well. Okay, so I just mentioned two little fun facts. We're adopted by our little cat Flossie, who chose us. We had no intention of having a cat, but she's definitely part of the family and will be coming with us to the Gold Coast. But let's talk about you. So you're in the right place if you know that your health is super important, and healthy eating is a big part of that. But emotional eating is coming up to sabotage your best intentions, and that can look a couple of different ways, and I'll go over that shortly. But you'd like to be easy. It can be such a struggle when we're dealing with emotional eating. Everything feels hard. But what I'm so excited about with tapping is that it makes it easy and effortless. It's just absolutely fantastic. And obviously you're willing to use tapping to shift this with emotional eating. Let's talk a little bit about today. So we're going to talk about why more willpower is not the solution to emotional eating. I used to think if only I had more willpower, and certainly a lot of my clients think or say the same. But we'll talk about the myths about willpower and why it's not a great tool to rely on. But we're going to look at better ways to manage our emotions, and also how to use EFT to make emotional eating a thing of the past, which is super exciting. So here's a question. How do you know if you're an emotional eater? You might like to jot that down if you're at home, or pop it in the chat. Well, how does that show up for you? How do you know if you're an emotional eater? And I'll talk a little bit about my experience. It was, for me, it was a compulsion. And my go-to foods were chocolate, chips and Coke. And it was like I really felt I would die if I didn't have that. And yes, if I eat something I'm not hungry, or just want chocolate. Yes, and chocolate is one of the most common things that we crave often or indulge. And I think it's because it ticks the fat and the sugar ticks. And evolutionary, our brains light up when we're around fat and sugar mainly. And we're designed so that we would put weight on so that in lean times we're right. But the trouble in this day and age, there isn't a lean time. So chocolate is a really common one. Some people just go for savoury, some people just go for salt. So it is individual, but chocolate's absolutely a big one. And it tends to show up a little bit like cravings, like you feel like you're going to die if you don't eat it. You don't want the apple in the fridge, but you're dying for chocolate. And for me, that craving was absolutely so strong, I would jump in the car and go and get it. And I know some of my clients tell me the same. But sometimes it can look like just this, picking. You might sort of eat for a couple of hours after dinner, or Ah, yes, I used to go for the salty food. Now the cravings have turned to chocolate. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, but what I love about EFT, and we'll talk about this more, and we're going to do some tapping on the call tonight, on the webinar tonight, is that it just dissolves that, so that, you know, it's just not a thing anymore, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about our emotions. So when we're looking at emotions, there are two parts to our emotions. They're the thinking part and the feeling part. So I'm going to talk about each of them in turn. So the thinking part, now this is where in society in this day and age, we really get stuck in. We don't spend much time in the feeling part. It's more the thinking part. So this shows up for us in excessive thinking. And like perhaps we've had an argument with someone or a heated discussion or something, we're upset about something, and often we'll go over and over and over that. We regurgitate that over and over, and it can keep us stuck. So we can stay stuck in the story. So we don't process that event in a normal, natural way, keeping a stiff upper lip. And often in our society, it actually glorifies this. You know, certainly I've been told, you know, suck it up, princess. My sister used to say, you know, take a teaspoon of cement and harden up. And you know, this is very common in our culture. So we can use distraction as well. And this is where emotional eating can come in. We can distract ourselves with food, or we can actually bury our emotions so that we don't feel them. Now, it's not like it's a conscious thing. We don't think, okay, I'm going to eat so I don't have to feel sad. Our subconscious just wants us to feel better. So, you know, we'll automatically go for that chocolate or the salty food or whatever it is. So it can be quite automatic and quite quick. Now let's have a look at the feeling side. So when we look at the feeling side of our emotions, we're looking at things like sensations in our body. And often, if I was to ask you, where would you feel your emotions? Many people will point to what we call the center line of our body. So our throat, our chest, our belly. And, you know, I think all of us, there have been times when we've gone to say something and perhaps it's a bit of an emotional situation and feel like our throat closes up. We talk about having a lump in our throat. Similarly in our chest, you know, our language reflects this. You know, we talk about having a heartache. We talk about being kicked in the gut. So often it's along that center line of our body. But for some people, you know, we've become so caught up in the thinking side of our emotions, we never get into that feeling side. So it can take a little bit of practice to just sit with those emotions. And in doing so, that allows them to process really quite beautifully. So when I first learned about this technique of, you know, just being with those emotions and sitting with them, you know, I was, you know, fairly type A, you know, let's have a solution to this, let's fix this. And I said to the trainer, look, what's the good of that? We're not doing anything. But in fact, we are just in being with those emotions that allows them to process quite beautifully. One of the best questions we can ask ourselves, especially when we get that sort of craving or we notice we're heading for the chocolate or the salty food or whatever that is to just pause, put a little bit of space there. And one of the best questions you can ask yourself is, what is it I truly need? And just check in. And your body's very wise. It'll usually tell you. And for me, often it's, you know, I think I might need the chocolate or the chips or the Coke. When I check in, it's okay, you know, I'm feeling sad. Just need to sit with that. And perhaps I need a cup of tea or some time out, some me time. Sometimes it's I just need a nap. So that's a beautiful question that you can ask yourself. One of the best things we can do is to build some awareness around our actions around food. So then we can take a different action. So why is it important that we connect to our emotions? And there's a whole field about this. It's a really big long word called psychoneuroimmunology. And what's been discovered is that the same molecules in our body that carry our emotions also regulate our immune system. We kind of know this, don't we? There's lots of research now, for instance, on, they did studies on students who were studying for the big exam, and they'd often get sick beforehand because of that emotion, and that stress would deplete their immune system. So it's really important. We need a healthy immune system to fight off colds and flus and infection, but also to fight off cancer. So having a healthy immune system is very important. Also, connecting to our emotion, we allow it to process quite naturally and normally, and we don't stay stuck in that story. And I've spoken to people who've been stuck for 20 years. So this learning to connect in and be with that emotion instead of trying to bury it with food is a really important skill, and it's a practice. So there are better ways of managing our emotions. So it's all very well for me to say this. How do we actually do that? So mindfulness of emotions, which is what I've been talking about, just to build some awareness around what we're thinking and what we're feeling. Are we trying to bury our emotions by, heading straight for the chocolate? And EFT or tapping, which is absolutely incredible for managing these emotions, dissolving any charge around them, and also lowering our stress. So I'm going to change tack a little bit and talk about willpower. And I used to often, like, my behaviour around food and chocolate used to mystify me. As a registered nurse and diabetes educator, I'd be teaching people how to eat a healthy, follow a healthy eating plan during the day, and heading straight for the chocolate after work. And I just could not resist it. It was irresistible. That urge was just too strong. And I used to think, if only I had more willpower. So who's ever wished they had more willpower? And certainly me. That was certainly me. I used to think, what's wrong with me? If only I had more willpower. Other people can resist it. Why can't I? And so let's talk about why more willpower is not the solution. So we can think about willpower a little bit like a muscle. So like a muscle, we can build it up with use. And there are things like, meditation will build our willpower. Exercising out of doors will build our willpower. Certainly being sleep deprived will deplete our willpower. But like a muscle, it tires, so it fatigues through the day. So that's why often, people find after dinner or in the afternoon, that's when these cravings and emotional eating will hit, because we've been using our willpower and making decisions all through the day. And at the end, there's just simply none left. It's not a resource that we can rely on. So this fact is absolutely extraordinary. When I first heard that we make around 200 food-related decisions a day, I was absolutely gobsmacked. It's absolutely incredible. Now, it's no 200. Yeah, OMG, that's right. Absolutely, Glyn. Yeah, incredible. And you imagine we're doing our food shopping around the supermarket, and often it's at the worst time of day as well. And often they've got, lollies in the checkout. Now, supermarkets are not silly. They spend millions of dollars on researching this stuff. And what the studies show really clearly is that if they were to put healthy things in the checkout, perhaps, apples, fruit, condoms, floss, they would sell more of those, because we've just got no willpower by the time we get to the checkout. We've made all of these decisions, and we get to the checkout and there's no willpower. So that's just an example of how willpower is a depleting resource. So we just can't rely on it. So let's look how we can use EFT instead to make emotional eating a thing of the past. So we do this, I've talked a little bit about connecting in with our emotions and dealing with our emotions and stress in the moment instead of heading for the fridge. So this needs a little bit of awareness, but instead of heading for the chocolate, we can do some tapping in the moment. But tapping is also good to reduce stress. So what the studies show is it reduces cortisol level, which is the stress hormone in our body, by about 24%. So just to manage our stress, regular tapping is absolutely incredible. So you're sort of heading these off at the pass before it gets to be a problem. And what we know in this day and age, many of us have got chronic stress. So that stress response never fully switches off. We've got this chronic stress and all of those stress hormones floating through our body and really increasing our risk of chronic disease. So we can, deal with our stress in the moment and our emotions, but also we can deal with deeper issues that can sometimes come up if we're triggered by someone or deeper issues from the past as well. So tapping is absolutely incredible for this. So as I said, it's been shown to reduce cortisol levels by 24%. The other thing I'll mention is that tapping works very quickly. So, and this can sometimes feel counterintuitive. So often, I had my, cravings around chocolate and emotional eating for a long time, and I'd put a lot of effort into trying to battle them, and it felt like such a struggle. But tapping just works beautifully and very, very quickly. And of course, it depends on the person. It can work as quickly as in one session. If the issue's been around for a long, long time, sometimes it can take a few sessions. But compared to other modalities, what they had to do in some of the studies was, and CBT or cognitive behaviour therapy was one of these, going head to head, they actually had to extend the study, not because tapping takes longer, but because CBT does. So to get a valid comparison, they had to extend the study just so that the CBT could work. So tapping tends to work very quickly. The other really beautiful thing with tapping, and I find it absolutely extraordinary, is something called the apex effect. Now, what happens with this is that we just forget there was ever a problem. And this came out in the studies. I just love this. So with the studies, they were randomized controlled trials, so very high quality studies. And of course, they had to follow the people up to see if the effect of tapping lasted. So, they would ring someone, say 6 months later, and say, "Oh, hello, how are you going? I'm ringing about the tapping study." And "Oh, yes, yes." And then they might say, "Well, how are you going with the Kit Kats?" And the person they rang would say, "Well, what Kit Kats?" They say, "Oh, well, the Kit Kats. You're having 6 Kit Kats a day. How's that all going?" And the person might say, "Oh, that's right, I was too." And they'd just forgotten that it was ever a problem. And I find this absolutely fantastic. It's just such a beautiful effect that we see with tapping. And it's hard to imagine that something that could be such a struggle and such a problem could just go to the point that we don't even remember that it was an issue, which I just think I get so excited about this. And as a diabetes educator and registered nurse, I could talk strategy till the cows come home. And I did with my clients, lots and lots of different strategies about how to manage emotional eating and cravings. And while strategy, still got to have our strategies, without tapping, there was something missing. It just wasn't enough. And tapping is the missing link. So I'm very, very excited about tapping, as you can tell. So what I might do now is we're going to do some tapping. So I'm going to turn off the slideshow and we'll do it live so that you can see me on the video. It is great there's all these stats. I just love it. And because, let's face it, tapping is a little bit strange. You know, we say certain words and then tap on different parts of our face. And I was very skeptical, but beautiful to have this research to support it. Yeah, I always knew it worked, but now, you know, we've got this solid evidence, which I just adore. I'm just going to flick onto this next slide because we're going to go over these tips just before I start. Now, it's important with tapping that we're specific. So I'll, perhaps you might like to pop in the chat things around chocolate. And I thought we might tap on chocolate actually. What do you love about the chocolate? What does it do? If you were to do some journaling around the chocolate, what would you say? So while I'm getting that, when you're tapping, be really specific. So let's say you're tapping along to the video in a minute. If your issue might be a potato chips or Coke or something different, so just write that particular down and you know, say that out loud. So everything around what you crave, what your emotional food is. We've got soft gooey, distracts me. Yeah, beautiful. Soft gooey, I'll write that down. Distracts. Okay. So write the issue down in your own words. So, you know, it can be full-on journaling. It might just be a little pad with a few words written down. And rate the intensity out of 10. So often you're in the middle of a craving, it'll be 10 out of 10 or 20 out of 10. So where 10 is the most intense you can imagine, 0, it's not a problem. So rate that, you know, where it is out of 10, just check in. And if you're not sure, just have a guess, that's enough. And then we'll check in after each round or two to just check in on the intensity and see if anything else has come up during the round. And often, you know, our subconscious, it's almost like it says, oh, goody, we're dealing with this. Let's bring this up as well. So often there's related issues too. It might be something from childhood, for instance. And so I recommend keeping tapping until the intensity is 1 or less. Why I'm super passionate about the rating system is that it's a quantifiable thing. You know, if you tap until you start to feel better, it's not enough. And from my experience, we start to feel better if it's dropped to around a 5, but you're not actually dissolving or resolving that issue. And it can lead you to feel that tapping's not working. So really important to keep tapping until that intensity is, if you check in, it might not be an issue at all, it might be 1. And there might be a number of related issues around this. So often we don't need to tap on all of them. You can think about this often a little bit like a coffee table. And so, for instance, if a coffee table's got legs, as we tap on an issue, it's like cutting off one of the legs. Now, you might cut off one of the legs and it's still standing. You cut off 2 of the legs, usually it'll fall down. So often we don't need to tap on all the related issues. Yeah, I deserve this. That's another one. And it's a really common one. I deserve this. Okay, we'll add that into we're going to add that into the next. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now. And just pop in the chat if you can see me. I'll check my view. I think I need the speaker view. Yeah. So we got that, and I'll just exit full screen. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got the speaker view. And yep, you can see me okay. So I'll just run through the points that we tap, and then you'll be able to watch me on the screen. So we'll do a setup statement that I'll take you through in a moment. And when we do that, we just tap on the side of the hand. So that's the side where the little finger is, just about there. And then once I've taken you through the setup statement, we do a round. So that their eyebrow point. So just at the tip of the eyebrow there's a little hard bone, side of the eye, which is just in that little dip there, under the eye, so just that bone there, under the nose, the chin, which is actually in the dip of the chin, just in there, collarbone. So collarbone, imagine, find the little notches and just go down. It's also called the sore spot. If you sort of dig around, it can be a little bit tender. So just there. And under the arm, which is about where that bra strap goes on a lady, and then top of the head. So that's actually around. So there are different varieties of tapping, and they're all fantastic. I do what's called clinical EFT, which is the one that's mainly the research at the moment is based on. So we might set this up. We're going to do chocolate, but as I say, if you're watching this at home and your comfort food is something different, just substitute the words. That's totally fine. So we're going to set this up. So we'll start by tapping on the side of the hand. Or firstly, before we do it, if you're around your emotional food, the food that you're craving, or your go-to comfort food, just rate and put an intensity. Now, if it's not the normal time that you would have that craving or head to your comfort food, it might not be super high, but just see how it goes. Just check in and write that number down for me. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap on the side of the hand and say, even though I really want this chocolate, I'm going to die if I don't get this chocolate. And I deserve the chocolate. The soft, gooey chocolate. I love it so much. I deeply, completely love and accept myself. Even though I really want this chocolate, I deserve this chocolate. I love this soft, gooey chocolate. Chocolate is my friend. I deeply, completely love and accept myself. Even though I'll die if I don't get this chocolate, chocolate is my friend and I deserve it. I love this soft, gooey chocolate. I deeply, completely love and accept myself. And now that we've set that up, we're going to go around the points and we're just going to shorten those statements. So soft, gooey chocolate. I love it so much. Side of the eye. Under the eye. I deserve this chocolate. Under the nose. I need this chocolate. Chin. Chocolate is my friend. Collarbone. I want this chocolate. Under the arm. Soft, gooey chocolate. Top of the head. I deserve this chocolate. Do another round. Soft, gooey chocolate. I love this chocolate. I deserve this chocolate. I need this chocolate. Soft, gooey chocolate. I love it so much. I need this chocolate. I deserve this chocolate. Okay, now I just want you to check in and just see what that number is when you think about the chocolate and or your go-to comfort food. And if anything's come up around that, you might like to jot that down and pop that into the next round. And just see if that number's dropped and write that number down. We're going to do another round and just add in, if something's come up, just add that into our statements. Okay. I need this chocolate. I deserve this chocolate. Soft, gooey chocolate. I love it so much. I want this chocolate. And I deserve it. Soft, gooey chocolate. I deserve it. I love the taste. A soft, gooey taste. I need it. I deserve this chocolate. It tastes so good. I deserve it. And I want it. I love the soft, gooey taste. Okay, now you check in again. And once again, rate the issue. I forgot to say too, if you've got water, have a drink too. With energy work, really good to stay hydrated. You'll often find you might be thirsty when you do a tapping session. So have a drink. And just check in and see if that number's dropping. So what we'd expect that it would. Sometimes, very occasionally, the number will actually go up. And you might think, well, that's really odd. Why has it gone up? And all it is that you've honed in on the real issue. So that's a really good thing. If, it's not a bad. And then once you've honed in on the real issue, you would be expecting that it would drop quite beautifully. So that's a lovely demonstration. Initially went up from 4 to 5, yeah, but now a 3. That's good. So what we'd want to do is get that down to a 1. I love that it's dropped, but 3 is still a little too high for me. So you might want to do a little bit of tapping just afterwards with that. I want to talk a little bit actually while we're on that with aspects. So what is an aspect? So an aspect is, and time is often a common aspect that I'll talk about. So, for many people it might be mid-afternoon, sometimes it's after dinner. So that's an aspect. So let's say you were tapping on the chocolate at a time that's different to when you would normally want to be looking for the chocolate. You might find that, yes, you get it down quite beautifully to 1 or less, but when the time comes along, you still sort of kind of want that chocolate. And all it means is that time is one of the aspects, so just do some tapping at that time, so that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so I'll share my screen again. Any questions actually before I do that on that tapping or anything we've covered so far? Just pop them in the chat. And if you're watching on the replay, just do send me an email and happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll just share my screen again. I'll keep an eye on that chat though. To 10 a.m. Oh, that's interesting. Yes. So you might want Ben to do some tapping around that. Just see how it goes. For some people, it's not an issue, but sometimes it is, and time is a really common aspect. So I'll just share my screen again. Here we go. So we've gone over the tapping tips. So can you see how powerful this can be to dissolve emotional eating? I just love it as a tool because it can be such a struggle. You know, we often set, great goals around our health, and we know how important our health is to us. And then with emotional eating, it can come up time and again to sabotage. So I'll just get that chat up again. Let's have a look where it is. Here we go. So I get any questions. Yeah. Absolutely powerful. It just works so beautifully. But here's the thing, as I said, a problem isn't a lack of willpower. And we talked about how willpower isn't a reliable tool. So when we talk about dissolving emotional eating, it's a combination of tapping in the moment, and we've just done some tapping. And tapping, we talked about tapping at 10 o'clock will be important for Glyn. And, you know, for me, it was often in the middle of the afternoon, or it might be at the time if you've been upset by something or triggered by something. That's a beautiful time to do some tapping. We also talked about just doing tapping on the stress and how it dissolves that stress quite beautifully. Also, tapping releases a deeper core. So sometimes, you know, our emotion can be tied to perhaps a memory from childhood or deeper things. And tapping's absolutely beautiful for releasing those. And of course, external support and viewpoint, because particularly, you know, we often think, oh, I should be able to manage this myself. But what tends to happen, we've got absolutely great intentions, but we don't quite get to it. You know, it falls down on the priority list. And also, we often don't go deep enough by ourselves. Tapping, you know, is something, it's simple, it's easy to learn. We've done some lovely tapping on the webinar tonight. But often by ourselves, we might not go quite deep enough. So I want to talk about my webinar special offer actually, which is my Breakthrough Intensive, which is $300. And the webinar bonus is 5 sessions for the price of 4. So I'm really excited. So it's a bit of a fast action bonus. It needs to be taken within a week. So we've got a week till next Thursday. And if you'd like to take me up on that offer, just email me, claire@clairekerslake.com, and I'd love to have a chat about whether it's a fit for you or what might meet your special needs. But let's look at, is there any questions on anything we've covered tonight, or that's been related, or something perhaps I've said that you haven't understood? Yeah, just pop them in the chat. It'd be lovely to hear from you. And I'll just pop that little offer up there for you. Fantastic bonus. And don't hesitate to email me, and we can, you know, set up a chat if that's appropriate, just to see what might be a fit for you. So I'll just see if there's any questions. Have a drink if you've been doing some tapping. As I said, it's wonderful to shift those energies. And I can answer any questions that we might have. Sometimes people ask me questions such as, which is all about, you know, often one of the questions that I talked about today in a video actually was tapping on the negative. So, you know, we're used to affirmations and framing affirmations in the positive. You might notice when we're tapping, we do tend to focus on the negative. And that's big. We don't make that up, or, you know, the negative is there. And I look at it a little bit like, imagine if you've got a wall that's cracked and you want to put wallpaper on it. So yes, we can put the wallpaper over the crack, but the crack's still there. We haven't solved the crack or done anything about the crack. We just can't see it at the moment. But we know that it's going to probably get worse. But with tapping, what we do is we actually fix the crack, so then we can wallpaper over it. So that's why we tap on the negative initially, and then once that intensity is down 1 or below, absolutely, if you want to bring some positive points in, then yeah, please do. Now, it doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat. So it's just been so lovely bring this information to you. As you can probably tell, I'm super, super passionate about tapping because it changes lives. The difference that I see in the lives of my clients, and I know the difference that it's made in my life is extraordinary. You can, Lynn, yes. I mean, you don't have to tap on the positive. But what I would say is don't bring the positive in until the negative, the intensity around the chocolate, for instance, gets to 1 or less. So, example of positive might be I love to follow, you know, healthy diet eating plan, or I love to nourish my body with healthy food. But I wouldn't bring those positive statements in until your intensity around that the chocolate is 1 or less. Yeah, beautiful, fantastic. All right, now any other questions that we might have before I be nice, short, sharp, and shiny tonight? But it's just been so lovely. I could talk about tapping till the cows come home. So it's been really lovely to bring this information to you. And as I say, if you think about any questions, don't hesitate to email me back. And of course, if you'd like that special offer, we've got a week to do that. Okay, look, thank you so much for coming along. And I'll get this replay out, probably be tomorrow now. And do let me know if you'd like to have a chat about my offer. And good luck with your tapping. Okay. I will. Let's have a look here. We'll stop recording.